Hi, this is Jim from NJ Cigar and Whiskey, and today we're going rock and roll with Heaven's Door American Whiskey and with the Headley Grange cigar by Crowned Heads. As usual, we're going to start with the whiskey, and this is Heaven's Door Double Oaked American Whiskey. And I can tell you a couple things just by the name. One is it is double oaked, which means it's been aged twice in oak barrels. Woodford Reserve does the same thing with some of its bourbon. And the other thing that I can tell is that it is not bourbon because it's called American whiskey. So what does that mean? It could mean a variety of things. It could have something to do with its mash bill, which, if in order to be a bourbon, it's got to be at least 50% corn. It could have something to do with its aging, because it's got to be aged at least 2 years in new American oak. I don't know how long Heaven's Door has been aged because it doesn't have an age statement. So, we came across this whiskey because Nick found it in the liquor store, thought the bottle was interesting, and we figured we'd give it a try. And on the nose, it has very strong vanilla, caramel, little hint of cherry, small hint of citrus. Ooh, wow, that has some serious staying power. Look at the legs on the glass. That's something. So in terms of the taste, you know, on the initial taste, you got a lot of brown sugar and vanilla and caramel. It's very, you talk about a dessert drink. That's what this is. Wow. It's also very excuse me, oily. It's very clingy. That's where the legs come from. It's very clingy in your mouth and has a long aftertaste. Little bit of orange or lemon peel and a little bit of tea. So Heaven's Door, I had to do a little bit of research because we just found out about this whiskey. This is actually a whiskey that's inspired by Bob Dylan. And if you take a look at the bottle is a reproduction of a work he performed in his ironwork called Black Buffalo Ironworks. And so Ryan Perry and Jordan Villa is the master distiller, they approached Bob Dylan and they formed a partnership and created Heaven's Door. And they've got a couple of different products. This one is the double barrel or American whiskey. It comes in at 50% alcohol by volume, which is 100 proof. So we're back and we're here to talk about Headley Grange. Now that is a cigar that's made by Crowned Heads, and it was a partnership between Crowned Heads and E.P. Carrillo. It has got a real nice double cap with a pigtail at the top. I kind of like that. Pretty plain looking band. This is an Ecuadorian Sumatra wrapper. It's milk chocolate brown, tight and visible seams. It's a really nice looking cigar, cross between rustic and smooth. And pretty light aroma. You get some sweet hay. I'm gonna give it a cut with my Luning cutter. Pretty light flavors. Sweet hay. Maybe a touch of vanilla, but I think that's some of the bourbon kind of hanging out. Well, not bourbon, American whiskey. Like I said, this is an Ecuadorian Sumatra wrapper. It's really tough to get information on the binder and filler. It's called a Dominican stick, but I suspect that there is a I think that means there's definitely a Dominican binder and a Dominican filler, but I think that there's a little bit of Nicaraguan filler in here too. Different websites that give you different information. We're going to give this a toast and a light. For those of you who don't know, Headley Grange is the name of the place, the estate where Led Zeppelin recorded Led Zeppelin 4 and Houses of the Holy and parts of Physical Graffiti. On the draw, I get hints of cinnamon, nutmeg, and baking spices, and some black pepper on the retrohale. Good smoke output. We're about 20 minutes in with the cigar. It's a slow smoke. Great smoke output though. You know, typical Crown Heads. I've never had a problem with Crown Heads and their smoke output, which again, for me, I like a nice, thick, easy smoke. Flavors remain pretty much the same. The black peppers died off a little bit after the light on the retrohale. It's more of a white pepper now. Did you hear that backfire? But on the draw, it's complex notes of baking spice, again, nutmeg, cinnamon, and some sweet hay. Now, interesting background for why this is called Headley Grange. Well, somebody over at Crown Heads, I forget their name at this point, was talking about cigars, and they were starting to come up with their tribute lines, like Jericho Hill, which I reviewed earlier. Please check out that review if you can. And one of they said, I want to blend a cigar that reminds me of the drums in When a Levee Breaks by Led Zeppelin on Led Zeppelin 4. So they teamed with E.P. Carrillo and came up with Headley Grange. And it's funny because when you look at Headley Grange, especially with that pigtail, it looks like a cigar that would be made by E.P. Carrillo and looks not necessarily like a Crown Head cigar. But it definitely smokes like one. So now you pair it up with Heaven's Door. So it's Led Zeppelin against Bob Dylan. Are they going to get along? Or are they going to fight? I have to say, the whiskey and cigar are holding up against each other pretty well. We're about 40 minutes into this 6x56 stick, the Headley Grange. You can see that burn. The ash fell off in one huge chunk about an inch in. I'll try and post a quick picture. Interesting on the draw, and some of this might be the combo of the whiskey. It almost has a graham cracker flavor. It's cinnamon, it's nutmeg, but there's also this graham cracker. It's very sweet, sweet hay, graham crackery kind of flavor, which I'm really enjoying. With some white pepper on the retrohale. And it's holding up pretty well against this Tennessee whiskey. That's where Heaven's Door is based out of, is Tennessee. Also have my water here because I want to be able to stand up later. Now pretty much the end of the cigar. The ash literally just fell off before we started to bring it back. Slight change in flavor. This cigar has been actually pretty consistent throughout, with the the nutmeg and the cinnamon and that sweet hay. I don't actually eat hay, but you know how that smells. But now it's a little bit darker, a little more of a tobacco flavor. Still like a white pepper, sort of applewood smoke on the retrohale. It's held up to the whiskey very well. Again, can't stress this enough. This whiskey is really a strong, I would say thick / oily whiskey. It really clings. And so, from a flavor perspective, a cigar has to be medium to full in order to hold up and not get overwhelmed by a whiskey. If you ever, a lot of people who do cigars and whiskey, you've been in a position where either the cigar overpowers the whiskey or the whiskey can overpower the cigar. In this case, I think they live pretty well together, which is great because it's our rock and roll pairing. It's Bob Dylan with Heaven's Door and Led Zeppelin with Headley Grange. We are about an hour and 20 minutes into the cigar. So this is it's a Toro size in terms of being 6 inches, about a 56 ring gauge. So it's been a pretty long smoke. It was sunny when we started. It's now dark. I'm filming by candlelight. And definitely worth the investment. So if you like the tasting notes on this pairing, I suggest you try it. If you like the tasting notes on anything in the individual pieces, I suggest you try it, because the Headley Grange by Crowned Heads is a wonderful addition to its rock and roll tribute, and Heaven's Door is a standalone, fantastic American whiskey. If you like bourbon, if those flavors are in your wheelhouse, you'll really like American. You'll like the double oaked Heaven's Door. Shout out to Lit Cigar Lounge. They're going to open Monday. Hooray! We're looking forward to maybe doing some filming there with Artie. And we look forward to seeing our Lit Cigar Lounge friends. Shout out to Bob the Cigar Guy, who did a pairing video. Hopefully you'll see some of our pairing videos and like what you see. Shout out to Lee Mac 912. And hey, if you like this video, if this is please like, subscribe, and share, and don't forget to leave a comment, because we'd really like to hear from you. This is Jim from NJ Cigar and Whiskey, and saying to you, Sláinte.